It's Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, so you know what that means. It's time for another episode of #Event Icons, presented by Endless Entertainment, the show where you get to ask the icons of the events industry anything. So, you might be wondering, how do you get to ask questions? All you have to do is use the question panel on the right of GoToWebinar to submit your questions. Or you can hop on Twitter to submit your questions with the #Event Icons. We'll be answering your questions live during the entire show. Before we get started, the more people we have watching, the better conversation we can have. So please help share #Event Icons on Twitter and Facebook. Just tell your friends to watch at www.event-icons.com. Now, without any further delay, this is #Event Icons with your hosts, Will Curran of Endless Entertainment and Laura Lopez of Social Tables.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to today's episode of Event Icons. I am your host for today. I'm Laura Lopez, the Senior Community Manager over at Social Tables. So what is Event Icons? Well, it's the one day a week where we bring in icons from the events industry, and you get to ask them anything that you want. So today's show, it is themed. It is ILEA themed, and if you don't know ILEA, it's the International Live Events Association, and we have two amazing people from the main board, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
International board. Yep.
All right. On today's show. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and intro our guests today. So we have Judy Brillhart. Judy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Do you want to give us a little intro of who you are, where do you work, and what's your involvement with ILEA?
Sure, absolutely. So I am currently sitting in Cambridge, Massachusetts at the Sheraton Commander Hotel, where I have worked as the Director of Catering and Event Management for several years now. I've actually been with the hotel for 17 years, and I have served in pretty much every single role there is in ILEA, and I am currently the International President.
Awesome. Welcome to the show. And our second guest is Jodi Collen. So Jody, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you sitting today, and what is your involvement with ILEA?
Hi, Laura. I am sitting in my living room in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I am the immediate past international president of ILEA. So I wrapped up my term as president last August. Last August. And in my real job, I am the director of events for a private university in the Twin Cities called Augsberg College.
Very nice. So we like to start every Event Icon show with the same question. And what got you all into the events industry? So Jody, we'll start with you. So you're at Augsberg College right now. How did you get in the events biz?
Well, I graduated from my undergraduate university with a degree in marketing and advertising, and I thought I was going to write the next great Super Bowl commercial, obviously. And I begrudgingly took a job in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I grew up on a farm in Iowa and was certain I was going to live like in the South somewhere where it doesn't snow and it's much warmer. And I was a marketing coordinator for a Fortune 500 company. I got an opportunity there. And I realized pretty quickly in my time there that the parts of my job that I enjoyed the most and that I felt most connected to were the days when I was planning the events that were part of our marketing mix. And I kind of accidentally got invited to a ILEA meeting, which was then an ISIS meeting, obviously. And because this was like many years ago at this point. And I went, and the speaker was David Merrill, and that was the first time where I really sort of got that the events industry was a thing. Before that, it felt like it was this cool part of my marketing work, and I didn't realize that it was something you could do full time. And so one of the things David encouraged me to do when I asked him how to do what he does was to join ILEA, and so I did, and shortly thereafter, I really started kind of actively pursuing a full-time job doing events, and I worked in a couple of small event planning companies kind of right out of the gate and landed at Augsburg. I've now been at Augsburg going on 14 years with a small break in the middle, and have been involved with ILEA the whole time. So I kind of fell into it, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying. But as soon as I knew this was a thing, I knew this was where I needed to be. So I jumped in and never looked back.
Awesome. And Judy, what about you? Did you fall in also, or was it?
I did. I did. So I actually have a degree from Boston University, specializing in international relations, specializing in Russia and the former Soviet Union and security studies, which has nothing to do with what I do today. But during my college career, I actually worked on Lansdowne Street, which was in all of the bars and nightclubs that abut Fenway Park. So I was very actively involved in sort of the restaurant nightclub industry for 4 years. And I also was social chair for my sorority for 2 years. So I was planning all of the events for my sorority at BU as well. I actually was working at the Boston Park Plaza as a concierge, and then moved to Vegas for a year, was working in restaurants out there, and then came back to Boston. And the way I sort of fell into my position and into this role was the gentleman that was my supervisor at the Park Plaza Hotel was working here at the Commander as the front office manager, and he actually hired me as the assistant front office manager. And then I just happened to be talking with the director of food and beverage one day, who said, "Oh, we have an opening in catering, would you be interested?" And I said, absolutely. So I moved over into catering about 9 months after I started here at the Commander, and I have been here ever since. And I really would say that what got me into the events side versus catering side was starting to go to the industry meetings. And then when I joined ILEA, it really became sort of a focus and a passion of mine. So it was by accident that I kind of fell into the industry, but not really. I always say that I was a person that could sit anywhere and talk to a doornail, so I wasn't ever afraid to go out and to talk to people and to meet new people, and yeah, and I think that in this business you kind of have to have that personality sometimes. So it just was sort of being in the right place at the right time, and actually blooming where I was planted, because if I hadn't have done a good job at the front desk and I hadn't have been recognized for the work that I was doing then, it probably would never have happened that I moved over into catering. So.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
I would add to that. It's interesting because I think while it's two things. The funny part is both Judy and I went to college with plans to be FBI agents, both of us, which is sort of funny.
Yeah.
We both ended up going completely bonkers and doing something else. And secondly, I think that it's the same thing is true for me. Like, I can't imagine. I landed exactly where I was supposed to, because this field makes such good use of my skill set that I just feel like when people say, like, what do you do for, like, tell me about you, the first thing that I say is I'm an event planner, because it's just so ingrained and part of who I am that I feel like I've been doing this work my whole life, and it's sort of just very, of course, it's serendipitous. I ended up getting paid to boss people around and make this.
Awesome. So one thing that I think is interesting about both of your starts is that, you sort of got pulled into an ILEA meeting, or somebody kind of brought you to an event. So that brings me to my next question is, can you each go into what is ILEA, what's its mission and vision, and then really what is the good that this association is bringing to the events industry? Like, how is it moving it forward? So Judy, we'll start with you this time.
So sure. So ILEA stands for International Live Events Association, and we actually just went through a name change very recently. And we used to formerly be called the International Special Events Society. So we had actually, before the need to obviously to change from ISIS to ILEA became quite evident with everything that was going on in the world. And before that, though, we were really having talks about what exactly is our industry and how do we represent that industry, and does special events, does that term actually say what we do now? Is that sort of, you know, for lack of a better way of putting it, is it an outdated term? Is there a way that we can better talk about what we do? So we are basically here to represent the creative events professional globally. And what that means is anybody having anything to do with our industry, whether you are a flower shop down the street that is a singular flower shop in Cambridge, Massachusetts, or you're as large as GPJ is. All of those are our members. We have everyone under one umbrella association working together to sort of elevate the industry through education, networking, and partnering with our fellow associations. So we've collaborated with NACE, we collaborated with CaterSource, with IMEX, with BizBash. Anybody having any association or having to do anything with the industry, we want to work with. But we really do want to be that place where people come to for education and networking, and we're working really, really hard towards that goal, towards supporting the industry in that way.
I would say also, for one of the things that is sort of near and dear to my heart is the idea of really advocating on behalf of our members. And we provide a ton of tactical resources and opportunity to meet each other and connect in with each other. But what I think takes that, what's already powerful, and makes it really impressive, is the ability for then us to take that as an entirety and to advocate on behalf of our industry and everybody that makes it up. Like Judy said, from these really small business owners to the big companies. It's really hard for us as individuals in that kind of world to be able to move issues and ideas forward. But if we all start talking together, I mean, even not just ILEA, but ILEA and all of those other organizations, if we can talk the same language and advocate for the same things and ensure that if the economy goes poorly, that the president doesn't stand in front of the people, any leader doesn't stand in front of the country and say stop having meetings or stop having events, you know, like that's the responsibility and the power of organizations like ILEA and any association to band together and say, wait a minute, like our members and the people that make up our association like drive so much of the economy. If you like really dive into the numbers, it's staggering. We're a huge economy boost, and like we need to figure out how to drive that forward. And I think that's what being part of collectives like associations, like ILEA and some of the others, can do long term and sort of really big picture.
That is really fascinating, especially when it comes to, I guess this industry is growing, but especially when it comes to events, you know, there's a lot of talk. And Jody, you were kind of alluding to it, is that, you know, I guess like we're never going to stop having meetings. We're never going to stop having events. It's so, yeah. And I think that the conversation that is happening right now in our industry of the importance of meetings and events, and how, yes, even with shrinking budgets, the value of them and what comes out of them is actually worth it. So, I guess that brings me to my other question that's piggybacking off that last one is, so we know that you all got involved by attending some ILEA meetings, but how did you make it to the international board? Now, for those of you who are tuned in right now, you know, ILEA has tons and tons. I mean, it is truly an international association, so they have chapters in, you know, the United Arab Emirates, they have them in Texas, they have in DC, on the West Coast. Will Curran, I believe, is also involved with his ILEA chapter. So how do you even get to that point, the international board?
Do Who's starting? Do you want to start,
So,
Jode?
Jody, let's start with you, since you are immediate past president. Do
Sure.
tell.
Well, I think the first thing to say is where a lot of, I'm going to take a step back from the international board and say that I think what the truth is that the vast majority of people that experience an organization like ILEA do so at the local level. And that's, I believe, where the sort of real juice of an organization like this is at, and where most people get their start. And both Judy and I did as well. I got pulled in the Minneapolis-St. Paul chapter very early on, and spent 8 years volunteering on the local chapter board on a variety of roles, became chapter president, and during the time that I was chapter president, started having some kind of hallway conversations with people that were already involved in international leadership, and started getting the sense from people that there might be opportunity for me to expand beyond the local level. But I didn't really understand exactly what that meant, because up until that point, I had limited exposure to what the international structure even looked like. And so someone encouraged me to go to a regional meeting, and I did. And that was kind of where it all clicked together for me, where I said, oh, I totally now get kind of how our chapter connects into this bigger picture. And I really was interested in pursuing those kind of additional opportunities, partly because I'm just really type A and like being engaged in that kind of thing, but also because I really quickly realized the kind of connections that it would give to me if I continued to do that. So I became regional vice president, and over the course of the 2 years that I spent in that role, again, lots of conversations with folks who must have seen some kind of leadership skills in me, who started, for lack of a better way of saying it, kind of grooming me and saying, like, these are things that we would suggest that you do. These are opportunities that you should probably take. And so I just started looking for opportunities that I knew could use my skill set well, and that I knew that I could contribute successfully, and applied for the board after I rolled off of my regional position. And from there, once you get onto the board, you spend 3 years as a board. The first entree that you have into the international board is as a member of the board. That's a 3-year term, and you play a variety of committee roles in that capacity. And then when you're finished with your 3-year term, you have the option to apply to the officer level, which once you get onto the officer level, it's a progression towards the presidency. And I actually applied for the officer level as I rolled off my 3-year term and didn't get on the officer level. Rolled off for a year, took on a committee leadership role that needed some guidance, and then applied again the next year and was put into the officer track at that point. So in total, I've been in ILEA leadership for 17 years. At the international level, once you become immediate past president, you've been on the board for 8 years. Yeah. So I've been on the international board for 8 years.
Okay, so it's not something I can just sign up for tomorrow in the hopes I might get on the international board.
Well, to be very honest and upfront, anyone that is a member has the right and opportunity to apply to the international board. There's a application and questions that they are asked to fill out, and that goes to the nominating committee, who reviews all of the applicants. Obviously, there's criteria and specific skill sets and things that people are looking for that they get vetted through. So it's not impossible for somebody who hasn't served in various other capacities before, and there are former international presidents that came straight on to the international board. But it's much more frequent to see people who have come up through a more kind of progressive
So, Judy, what was your experience like getting on the international board? What was your involvement before, and how did it really progress to being at the spot that you're at now?
So I had an extremely similar path to Jody's. I actually, my first ILEA meeting, I got what I like to call voluntold onto the membership committee. So I joined a committee locally right away, and then my moved up. I became vice president of membership, and then president-elect, president media past. I was also regional vice president, but I really got sort of the taste. I think it's once you get that taste of either a regional meeting or an international meeting where you really, really, really start to sort of fall in love with the association and really understand the power of the association. And so, like Jody, I have a mentor. I have several mentors that were talking with me the entire way through my path. I also think that leadership is not for everyone. It does. I like to joke that it's my second full-time job, because it really is. I have a ton of passion and fun with it, but it definitely does, you know, especially as you get higher up in the board, it does definitely take a lot of time. So that's something that's got to be considered, is how much volunteer bandwidth do you have, and you know, because we all have families, we all have lives outside of our regular jobs, and then we have ILEA. But the good thing about it is that I've actually found my family within this association, so that's helped support me through the transition up. And I have very, very good friends that I call and I bounce things off of and I talk to about this. So you know, so I kept moving up, and I just kept connecting with people like Jody. I applied for an officer the year that I rolled off. The year that I rolled off of the Board of Governors after my 3-year term. I did not make officer. Actually, they selected Jody that year, which is fantastic. And then I was put in what they'd like to call a mission critical role, which was given a big task force to lead, just like she was, a big committee to lead rather, and then rolled on as officer. So it just is kind of one of those things that you have to, you know, and as I said, even in my job, it's bloom where you're planted. It's even if you're given a job or a task or something that is foreign to you, or that, you know, is not your favorite thing to do, if you decide to take it on, do it and do it well, and other people will notice. And I think that sort of, for everyone that's sitting on the board right now, is kind of how they got in that position. What I will say, though, is that we are all people just like everyone else. I'm just Judy Brillhart. I sit in my desk in Cambridge, Massachusetts, just like you sit anywhere in the world and do your job. So please, you know, don't be scared to volunteer. Don't be scared to raise your hand. You have to start somewhere. Apply for an international committee. Just get that experience under your feet. So I think that it has to start somewhere, and there sometimes seems to be this perception of it's international, I'm scared, I don't know what to do about it. Well, talk to any one of us that is involved in the committees or is involved on the boards. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions for you.
Awesome. And hopefully after this episode, if you all are okay with it, we can put some of your contact information.
Sure.
So if anybody is, you know, like your Twitter handle, which hopefully people can see right now on Twitter, by using the hashtag event icons. But yeah, that would actually be really, really good to know, because I'm sure there's people that want to get involved and don't maybe quite understand what is the benefit that they're going to see. But it sounds like truly, I mean, you're building more than just a network or just getting a business card here and there at a networking event and, you know, maybe free food and bev. You're getting, you know, lasting connections. Lasting connections. You're going to see these people at other events. You're going to see them, hopefully do business with them. So it seems like there's a lot of benefits with joining a board and ILEA. So there's a lot.
Can I say something about that?
Yeah.
So it's funny, Judy and I were just actually speaking in Austin, Texas on Monday, and we actually had some of these same conversations. And one of the things that we spent some time talking about is what's really powerful about volunteerism, especially in the way that it happens through an organization like ILEA, where it's really kind of directly tied to your work. What has been most beneficial to me as a leader, and my bosses will tell me this, is the kind of experience it gave me that has just catapulted my capacity and my real job in ways that I'd never expected. And so my boss told me recently, I can't believe how much you've sort of grown and expanded over the last 2 years as a leader, especially I think given kind of all the craziness that happened during my presidency, I had to react and learn a lot really fast. And what I think is so compelling about that is there's no way I could have ever gotten that kind of training in my paid job that fast and in that kind of intensity. And it has paid tenfold over and over and over again to my real job for what ultimately is this relatively small financial investment in a thing that gave me the opportunity to grow and be so much better professionally. And like, that's how I want to talk about this with my staff now. Is the business is great. Obviously, lots of people come to associations like this to grow their businesses. But what I think we don't talk enough about is how it can grow our people and get us to grow all of us to be better and more professional, because I think it's safer to take some risks in a volunteer capacity that you're just not quite as comfortable taking when it's your paycheck on the line. Like, I think we can support each other in a different way through an organization where you're volunteering and being kind of held up underneath by lots of other people that are supporting you. I just think that's something we don't spend enough time talking about, and can be just like a huge, huge win from volunteering that we should spend more time discussing, I think.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah. And that was actually a great segue to my next question. Because my next question was, why would somebody want to join ILEA? I guess, period, but that was a great answer. But sort of like on the same vein, and we got a question in, thank you, Alex Plaxton, who is live tweeting this. So what makes ILEA different than MPI, PCMA, or some of these other industry organizations, which, Judy, you had mentioned this earlier, and I know that our ILEA chapter in DC has done this, but lots of collaborations with other events industry meetings or catering industry associations, but what really sets ILEA apart, and why would somebody want to join ILEA versus these other organizations? And Judy, we'll start with you.
So I want to first and foremost say that we are all in this boat together, that there is not one association that is better than any other. We are all in this events and meetings and hospitality industry together, and that's why we all sit on the CIC, or the Convention Industry Council, at the same table together to have these talks to move this industry forward. What I will say is that ILEA was events first. So ILEA has a very, very, very strong background in events. We are focused on events. We are not focused on meetings. We are not focused on catering. We are focused on events. And I would say that if you are in the events industry, that this association is right for you. It also has a global reach. A lot of the other associations that we play in the sandbox with do as well. But in terms of planning actual events, this is the go-to association for you. And the fact that we have members in, now I think the last number was 38 countries all over the globe, only strengthens our association. So, Jody, do you have to add?
I think the thing that I would say, in addition, that's all incredibly true, is it's hard to quantify, but I think it's really about the personality of the organization. True. Is what, I mean, we all have, quite honestly, hundreds of associations we could choose to belong to. And while I started out with ILEA because I felt like it was the best connection for the kind of work that I do events, and primarily events. And I wanted those kinds of resources and connections to those kinds of people. But what I have found over the years is that this organization's personality is so suited to me that I have been able to flourish in a way that has been really powerful. And I hear that that's not unique to me. Like, I have heard that over and over and over again over the years, is that this is a place where I found like I found my people. And I think that's hard to tell someone, like, here's why you should be an ILEA. all of the other things that Judy said, and the data and the numbers and who we are is so true. But I think the personality of this organization is unique and is really what draws a lot of people in and keeps them around for a really long time.
I mean, I've heard on numerous occasions, I did not come up with this, but a lot of people say ILEA is a hug. It's like a warm, welcoming association. So,
and I mentioned earlier, I too am an ILEA member. And one thing, shout out to Stacy Height, our president. I know she'll love that. So one thing that we all do, we have, ongoing email threads about upcoming events and, logistical stuff. But one thing that we always make it a point to do is that if we have somebody who's brand new, our VP of programs and events, she actually says there are no loners in ILEA DC. Like, everybody's a friend of each other. Go say hi to somebody. We all know what it was like to be, to attend our first meeting. God forbid we did it by ourselves. So we all make it a point to at least, if they're going to walk out of this meeting or this event and talk to nobody else but the board, cool, we've done our job. So I love that you said that's a hug. I am going to share that at my next ILEA meeting. That was great. So on that same token of engaging our members, and we were talking about all the chapters. There's 38 international chapters, and then I don't even know. Do you all know the number of chapters in America or North America? Do you all maybe have it?
I know them globally. I would have to say it's probably 24 in the U.S.
In the United
States. 24.
United States. Oh, wow. Okay.
And then for Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto,
it's one.
Edmonton, 4 in Canada.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
And then Europe, UK, Middle East, and Hong Kong.
Central Europe. Yeah. Hong Kong.
So clearly ILEA has some pretty far reaches, lots of chapters. What are some of the cool things that you all have seen other chapters do to engage your members? So, what kind of events are they doing? Are they doing anything on a one-to-one level? What are some cool things you've seen? So, Jody, we'll start with you this time.
I think that one of my favorite things still that I've seen a chapter do in the last several years is that our ILEA Calgary does, all of our chapters do monthly meetings where they have people come in and they do physical face-to-face meetings. ILEA Calgary took on a project called ILEA Chats, and they do a Twitter interview with a industry professional. It's usually on Wednesdays, and I've seen many. I know Judy and I have both participated in it, and it's a really interesting conversation and way to communicate with their members in a non-face-to-face way that sort of extends some of the conversation, gets people in their chapter exposed to people from all over the world, because they can't often fly somebody in from Australia, but I know that they've had people participate in their chat session that way. I think it really expands the reach of their chapter a lot. So that's probably the coolest thing that I've seen happen in a while. I'm sure you have ideas as well.
Yeah, Judy, what have you seen?
Yeah, if we're talking technology, there's been a lot of Instagram. My lights just turned off in my office because I'm not moving enough. Sorry. We do a lot of Instagram takeovers. So one chapter will take over another chapter's Instagram feed. That's been very successful. Also, sister chapter programs. So having a chapter in the U.S. become a sister chapter with a chapter internationally has been very popular. They all do really creative and amazing events all of the time. The Vancouver chapter does the Hangouts, quite frequently, which is amazing as well. So that's a really neat thing. But their gala, I just enjoy visiting the chapters so much and going to all of their various events and seeing the creativity that's involved. But it is important to note that that it's not all glitz and glamour, that it's not all cocktails and appetizers. There's definitely education, and that's very, very, very important to what we do. But there's two types of education. There's actually the sitting in the chairs and listening to someone talk type of education, and then there's the seeing and touching and doing and experiencing type of education. So the galas are just as important to our members as the actual classroom time meetings are, as are the networking only, because you learn when you talk to your peers. So, I mean, our chapters just do some amazing things.
Awesome. So I guess widening the scope a little bit, there is obviously one huge event that happens every year. It's called ILEA Live. I'm sure you all have heard of it. So it's ILEA's annual event. So I guess just kind of going back to the need for, not only extending the experience online with Twitter chats, Google Hangouts, all that good stuff, but obviously we love the face-to-face interaction. So what was the impetus behind having an ILEA annual event? And I guess what really sets it apart from other annual events that, maybe it's a conference or trade show that would really motivate somebody to attend ILEA Live. And if either of you have helped planned it, would love to hear more about that. So that was kind of twofold, or threefold. That was a big question. So Jody, we'll start with you. Tell us what you know about ILEA Live. Where did it come from, and why do we need it?
Well, ILEA, and prior to our name change, when we were ISIS, I mean, we've had an annual conference as long as this organization's been around, basically. It's had a number of names attached to it. It started out, at least as long as I've been around, it was the Conference for Professional Development. It became Event World, and our current name is ILEA Live, obviously. And I think the reason that this exists is we're a live events association. We need to have a live event. This is what we do, and this is the way that we communicate with the world. And I think this is how we live our lives, and we value the importance of this, and we talk about this with our clients and our companies. And so I think it would be a little bit bizarre if we didn't have a live component within our association. What I think is really interesting about, we sort of changed the format of the conference. It used to be more kind of a traditional talking head kind of conference, and several years ago we transitioned the format of the conference to, we challenged the committee that was putting it together to really think innovatively about the way that we structured the education specifically. And so we actually the speakers that are at ILEA Live are not always a list of event professionals. Over the last several years, we've had filmmakers, chefs, creative directors for Broadway musicals, choreographers, artists, anyone working as in a creative capacity. We actually want to talk to them. And we have lots of event professionals speak too, but it's not just that. It isn't just production schedules 101 or lighting 101. It is much deeper than that, actually, and we're asking people that work in similar industries to ours to come in and talk about their creative process, to talk about how they tell stories, which is, at the end of the day, what we do through live events is communicate messages and tell stories and help people move from one place to the other. And there's a lot we can learn in that. And so our education is structured we'll have somebody come in and give like a 10 to 15 minute TED Talk. We might have 4 people give TED Talks, and then they get the opportunity to do an hour-and-a-half deep dive, and the participants in our conference get to hear the 4 TED Talks and then decide which person that they want to dive deep with. And so then they'll go into a much more hands-on, smaller group session with that person. And I have to say, and not just because I'm on the board of this organization, but I remember vividly the first time that I went to this conference under this format, and I was so energized when I left the conference because it was such a different environment to learn, and for a group that is incredibly visual and hands-on and really, I think, creative in our soul, I think it was a really good way to get us kind of out of our comfort zone and try some new things and have some different conversations. And we're still tweaking and learning and figuring out exactly what this all looks like, but I think it's a really cool concept, and we're talking to some amazing creative professionals and learning from people that we wouldn't often get the opportunity to talk to. So that's my
That's awesome. Oh, wow. Judy, do you have a favorite memory from a previous ILEA Live that you've attended?
I do, but I can't share it out loud. I'm sorry. No, I'm kidding.
That's for a future episode.
No, I mean,
It'll be in the post session.
Yeah, I will be in the post session. There you go. No, I think it's like my favorite time of the year. I mean, it honestly is. I get to go, and I need like a vacation after I go home from the conference. But just, I mean, the closing night party generally, which has been the Esprit Awards, being on that dance floor with everybody, knowing that the conference has been extremely successful, meeting, you're dancing with your new friends and your old friends, and everybody's just sort of come together and had experienced this amazing event, and it's just celebrating that. But, as Jody said, when we first changed to the TED style talks, it was definitely out of our comfort zone. It was something that was like, uh-oh, is this going to work? Are people going to enjoy it? Are they going to understand what the heck we're trying to do here? What do you mean we're not teaching them how to plan an event? That's our job. We're supposed to teach them how to plan an event. But it worked. I mean, it was absolutely phenomenal. I was like, holy cow, you walked out of there with just some amazing ideas, and it wasn't, it was just about creativity and about how to sort of open that up, and there's so many ways that creativity plays into our lives as professionals, as business people, in our personal lives, and in our association. So learning together with people has probably been my favorite part. And then just that that closing night where it's like, oh my gosh, it's over, we've all had an awesome experience, and now it's really time to celebrate. So.
And I would say also, not just, like, one of the things people get hung up on in this notion of creative event professional is the definition of creative. And I think what we've tried to do is, it isn't just about, like, being an artist kind of creative.
Yeah.
But it's about creative thinking, about creative problem solving, about being able to understand how to think outside of the traditional way we've always done it. And that's the kind of thing we're trying to understand how to do better, differently, in a new way. And we're providing access. I mean, at ILEA Live at our last conference, we had Frank Supovitz, who has worked on the Super Bowl. Like, I'm like sitting in the front row, like, oh my gosh, this guy playing the Super Bowl, like, I want to talk to him. And we had a gentleman speak at our conference who just won an Academy Award as a filmmaker, and like, we've had Broadway award-winning choreographers come in, and to have access to those people in a way that we just wouldn't otherwise, I think, is really powerful. So that's been my favorite part, and I think is what's most powerful is access, and to be able to have conversations with people that I feel like I can just kind of absorb from. Is such a amazing opportunity.
That's so cool. Can't wait till this year's conference. Is there anything cool that we can expect from this year's ILEA Live? Is there anything you can actually tell us, or is it all kind of like under lock and key right now?
I will say this: it's not going to be the typical conference again that you will come to. So we're shaking things up a bit again. So. Awesome. That's what I will say.
The artist formerly known as ILEA Live. Great.
Yep, there you go.
Can't wait. Very cool. So my next question, this one's a little bit more philosophical thinking kind of question, but why do you all think that communities like associations are important for the events industry? So that was sort of my deep thinking question. When I was writing these questions, I was like, why is it important? Why do we need them? Judy, we'll start with you this time. Why do you think associations are important for the events industry?
because I think that that's a really safe place for people to learn. I think that sharing of ideas and knowledge is vital. I think that face-to-face meetings are vital. I just really feel like our association gives people a place to connect and to learn and to grow, and it also, you know, on a business level, it does help you gain new business eventually. It teaches you how to be a better professional. It helps you, you know, it just helps you in that, and all those things, and showing up and volunteering and attending will ultimately build your business. Whether it may not be that it comes directly to you, but it may be that because you're a better event professional, you're able to go out and find it better. It's just a place of sort of where you're able to talk and to connect and to really share ideas, and it's also a place that you can fail, and if you have failures, you share them with other people so that maybe they won't have the same failures that you do, and it's okay to do that. I really look to it as a resource. I look to it as a family. I look to associations as friendships. But I think that and it also brings you into your community, whether it's the global community or the local community or whatnot. I mean, I've done so many community service projects with all of the organizations that I've involved in. It's been a wonderful experience for me, but you know, you need to give back what you get, and you can't just sit inside the four walls of your office or the four walls wherever your event may be and just expect things to grow and expect things to change and not be inspired or not learn from new things. And I think that's what associations can offer people is definitely inspiration.
Inspiration, yeah.
I think from my perspective, it's I would all of that, and I would say well said. I would say two additional things, and for me, I think there's all this conversation happening in the world about are associations still relevant, and especially as young people come into the younger people. I apparently am not part of the young people anymore. As younger people than me come into the space, there's been a lot of discussion about how do associations remain relevant. And I think that what I try to talk to people about is, can you go out and make connections with people online and via social media and via all the many things that make our world smaller today? Yes, you can do that. But being friends with somebody on Facebook or connecting to them on Twitter or being connected to them on LinkedIn is completely different than being connected to them in real life, and to having that sort of deep-seated trust and friendship and connection. And I just genuinely feel very strongly that it's really hard to do that. Not impossible, but it's so much harder to develop that kind of sort of deep, long-lasting connection with somebody via an online resource. And so I think that's one of the best and sort of most powerful things about an association like ILEA is that opportunity to take that connection out of the computer, sit and have a glass of wine with somebody, or sit in a room and talk about what's happening in your business and get real-time, real feedback. And I think it's really hard to do that in a different format. And ILEA provides the kind, in associations in general, but in this context, ILEA provides people the ability to do that in a way that, you know, you automatically find people that have things in common with you and that are interested in the same kinds of things, that have the same wants and needs and desires for our industry, and hopefully be able to work on some projects together. And the second thing I would say, kind of coming out of that, is that's how, over the long term, I believe personally that associations, if you look at kind of all of the really important major industries that exist in the world, they are advocated for by large groups of people working together. And our associations are the avenue for us as an industry to be able to do that collectively with the government, with whoever we need to be advocating with. It's going to end up happening and being driven by associations. And that's not going to happen by on social media. That's going to happen by a whole bunch of people physically coming together and moving issues and ideas forward. And that's what associations have the ability to do.
Absolutely.
I feel like I needed, there was like a mic drop and like a standing ovation. You just won the Oscar for Best Performance. No, really?
No, she didn't win the Oscar. I did because they read the name wrong, right? No.
Wow. That was so well said. We actually have a comment in from Brian, and I'm so sorry if I butcher your last name, Atchison.
Atchison.
Atchison. Hello, Brian.
I'm eager to hear what's coming right now because we both him.
Okay, cool. He said, all true and well said. Thanks for your dedication to the industry and the association. Signed number 25. So that is very cryptic, but I'm assuming you all know what that meant.
Are you president number 25? Is that why he wrote that?
Oh, maybe. President number 25.
Oh, I was like, what is he talking about? Yeah. President.
He said yes.
Okay, there we go.
President number 25 is on the line. Very, very cool. Thank you so much, Brian, for the comment and the kudos. Well, that was great. So we are actually coming up on our time. This hour I can never believe how quickly it flies by. So we have two last questions for today's show, and we ask this on every single episode. So first question is, if you could only pick one, what is your one tip you have for event planners? And that can be, we leave that open. So what is your one tip you have for event planners?
Join ILEA.
Okay.
Shameless plug. Shameless.
Jody, do you have one?
Mine is I think, and I tell this to people all the time, is that I think one of the most important skills we have is to become really good listeners, because I think that that's where we have the ability as event professionals to be able to, I think people are not often good at telling us what they actually want, actually what they need, and in today's world, events are all about telling a story and telling a message and helping people accomplish goals and objectives. They've become some of the biggest marketing vehicles for our companies and for the people that we're working for. And we need to be able to listen and understand what people are actually saying and to be able to sort of read between their lines and take what they are trying to accomplish, put it into words and ideas and concepts that we can actually do something with, and be able to take something out into the world. And if we aren't able to listen and be able to decipher what people are saying, it's going to be really hard for us to do good work. And so I think that really paying attention and becoming very astute listeners is probably the biggest skill that I would encourage someone to have.
Okay. And last but not least, one of my very, very favorite questions is, do you all have any new and cool resources you want to share? It could be a website, your favorite blog that you always check out every single day, books, gadgets. We had somebody tell us about their favorite scuba mask, apps. What are your favorite resources? You can just shout them out.
Go for it, Judy.
I will say this, and this is not a shameless plug because of who is on this right now. I use social tables like it is going out of style. I love social tables. I use it all the time. So
you did not pay her to say that?
No, they didn't. They did not pay me to say that. The other thing that has changed the life at the hotel here for my houseman is called a gaff gun, which is like this cool little thing that you put the gaff tape in, and it puts the cords in with it, and it makes a straight line with the tape so that they don't have to like crawl on their hands and knees and do it. So that's a really cool, really, really cool thing. You can get it on Amazon.
Ooh, okay. Gaff gun on Amazon. It's on Amazon. All right. Jody, do you have any resources, blogs, tools, anything?
Yeah. I mean, there's like a bajillion blogs out there in the world. I follow a lot of project management blogs, actually.
Okay.
There's a bajillion of them out there, and I think go and find ones that make sense for you. I the kind of work that I do is really project management based, and so I'm trying to learn a lot about how that industry is organizing and doing things, because I'm able to translate a lot of that into my job. I would also say a couple things. If you haven't heard of or checked out the ILEA Purple Paper, which was a document that came out of the Global Event Summit that we hosted last April in Scotland. We partnered with Visit Scotland, IMEX, and CVent, and Events of Great Britain on an event. We brought 30 event planners over and did a 3-day intensive conversation about the industry and the future of our industry. And the Purple Paper is a document that outlines kind of what we talked about, what's going to happen next, what we're trying to do, and how we're going to keep that conversation going. So I would definitely encourage people to check that out. It's a high-level document, but gives a good idea of what we did. I love the Event Manager blog. It's full of great, timely information. Julius does a great job keeping us updated.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's amazing. Such a great advocate for ILEA and our association, and our industry in general. And I'm sure everybody is aware of this, but I just have to say, Google Docs changed my life. It is the best thing that has ever happened to my business life. And so if you are not using Google Docs, you should be. Please, 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 everybody get on Google Docs. It's the best thing ever. So.
Yeah, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, but you can actually host your, if you're an independent planner, for example, and you have your domain, you can actually host your business's email server and all of that, and do it through Gmail. So then you can use Google Docs with clients and things like that. So.
The university that I work at does our entire email system via Google like that, and so our whole college, the university uses Google Docs. Oh my gosh, it's the best thing ever.
That's awesome. Yeah, we do too at Social Tables. We use Google Docs, Google everything. So awesome. Well,
just one last thing. ILEA also has a publication called ILEA Live. It's our newsletter that comes out. It's a combination of our global partners. It's timely information, stories, things that are happening in the events industry. So it's called Live, and people can check that out as well.
Very good. Awesome. Well, for anybody who's tuned in right now, we will post all of these resources in the follow-up blog, which will be posted next week. And of course, if you have any questions, you can hit up these two ladies on Twitter. We will post their Twitter handles after the show, but you can also check out #EventIcons right now, and then ask them any lingering questions you have. But with that, thank you both for your time today. It was a great episode. Yes, thanks. Thank you so much. And for anybody who's tuning in right now, if you have a suggestion for an event icon you'd like to see on a future episode, please send those over to Will Curran on Twitter. He's @It's Will Curran, or you can send them to me. My Twitter handle is @Laura Lopez, but the L's are ones. So with that, we will see you all next week. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of #EventIcons. To catch the transcription and all of the resources mentioned, head to www.helloendless.com/blog. This week's episode will be posted and available by next Tuesday. Also, let us know what you thought about this week's episode. Share your biggest takeaway and join the Twitter conversation sponsored by Alex Plaxton and Little Bird Told Media. Just tag your post with #EventIcons. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on #EventIcons.